What's going on, guys? Horse Beef here, and I want to talk to you guys about UFC 300. I did make my prediction video, so if you didn't see that, I was going to say check it out, but I don't see the point of checking it out now that the fights are finished. And just to play spoiler, my picks were not that accurate, as they usually are not, because fights are incredibly difficult to call. But I want to go through each fight and give you guys my thoughts, because that was probably one of the best cards I've ever had the pleasure of witnessing. Let's get to the first fight here. Deiveson Figueiredo versus Cody Garbrandt. This is one that I almost got down to a T. I expected second round finish. I did predict a KO for Deiveson Figueiredo, but he did get the choke, rear naked. Cody Garbrandt looked a lot faster as I expected, and based on that fight, I don't know if Deiveson can really become champion at 135. He seems a step behind in the striking. He seems very, very slow with his striking. Guys that have some hand speed are going to give him trouble. So I think guys like Peter Yan, mostly Peter Yan, Song Yadong, even these are guys that I think would put a beating on Deiveson Figueiredo and probably finish him. But good performance. Sucks to see Cody Garbrandt go out like that, or get choked out after he was looking pretty impressive in the first round. So it sucks, but congratulations to Deiveson Figueiredo. Good performance, good second round rally. Bobby Green versus Jim Miller was the second fight, and it looked like it was about to go the way I expected at first. Jim Miller cracked him a few times in the first round. I thought won the round. The commentary was awful in the first round, just talking about how low Bobby Green's hands are and how good his head movement is, even though Jim's landing big shots that they're just not acknowledging at all. So it could be a little bit deceiving and make you think that Bobby won the first round, even though Jim Miller won the first round. But then in the second, Bobby Green started styling on him, throwing those front kicks to the body and just straight shots, man. Just straight shots. Shot selection is always a little bit weird. He'll throw the backhand before he throws the jab. He'll follow up with the jab at times. It's unique, and he was just busting up Jim Miller's eye. And then in the third round, he continued with that beating. Jim did hurt him, I think, towards the end when Bobby Green pointed to the center of the octagon and said, "Let's scrap it out," and they started to scrap it out. I think Jim actually hurt Bobby at one point. Bobby had to clinch up, but then Bobby ended the round absolutely pummeling Jim Miller. Landed a beautiful combination on the feet, and then followed him to the ground and tried to get the finish. And if it wasn't for a few of the other fights later on in the card, this fight here probably would have been considered fight of the night. It was very, very good. Great scrap between both men. Respect. Good result for Bobby Green after that horrible knockout against Jalen Turner. And then Jessica Andrade versus Marina Rodriguez. I picked Marina here, and it looked like Marina could have won the fight, but honestly, I would have called it a bit of a robbery if she did, because second round was mostly Jessica Andrade. I mean, Marina was landing nice little 1-2s, 3-2s down the pipe. Those straight shots that everyone knows that Jessica Andrade is very susceptible to, but she just seemed to have not a lot of pop on them. Jessica was able to walk through them, and then eventually she would get her against the fence, land those flurries, those big hooks, and it's just the optics. Even if she wasn't landing a lot of those shots against Marina, it was the way that Marina was looking body language-wise. She looked like she was fading, and she did fade in the second round. Third round came out with a second wind, and then faded again, it looked like, and Jessica's pressure and volume with those massive John Lineker, Vanderlei Silva-esque hooks were just too much for Marina Rodriguez. And we get into the final fight of the early prelims, Jalen Turner versus Moicano, and I got this one wrong too, but I'm so happy to have got this one wrong. I'm not complaining. Jalen Turner looked like he could have got that first round finish like I predicted against Moicano, but he tried to get the walk-off. Stupidly, that is going to haunt him for the rest of his life, I feel, because in the second round, as always happens, if you can survive the first round with Jalen Turner, he begins to fade a little bit, and then that's when guys like Renato Moicano can shine. He just ragdolled him on the ground, completely dominated him, and ground and pounded him until Jalen could do nothing about it. Renato Moicano, loved the guy, loved his post-fight speech. What a fighter, what a guy, I love him. One of my favorite personalities in the sport right now. I'm so happy to see him win that fight. Then we get into Sodiq Yusuff versus Diego Lopes. This fight happened as I expected, because I expected Diego Lopes to win it, but I didn't expect him to finish him, especially that early. I thought Sodiq Yusuff could tag shots. I don't know. I thought he had a better chin, or maybe Diego Lopes really does hit that hard because he is a massive featherweight. But those uppercuts up tight, I think the first sequence that drops Sodiq Yusuff was an uppercut followed by a left hook, I believe, that just put him down. And he looks like he throws hammers with his shot. So Diego Lopes has power on the feet and an elite grappling pedigree. he is an elite jiu-jitsu guy. Watch his fight versus Evloev if you haven't. He has elite grappling. Dude, Diego Lopes is serious. I want to see him versus either Evloev. I don't even know, honestly, man. You give him. I know he was calling for Topuria, but I think you can give him anyone in the top 5, and it makes sense. He showed himself to be elite. Maybe him versus Barbosa could be a fun little fight. Then we get Holly Holm versus Kayla Harrison. This one happened as I expected too. I did expect Kayla Harrison to maybe grind out a decision, but I also thought that it was very possible that she would submit Holly Holm, and she did submit Holly Holm. Looked strong in there. I think she may run through the bantamweight division. I don't know. Maybe somebody with significant punching power. Maybe someone like Aldana could finish her. Maybe, if she's not so gun shy. But I don't know. Kayla Harrison, she looks absolutely yoked in there. It looks so big, so strong. It's hard to see a lot of these girls, being able to hang with her on the ground. It's very, very unlikely. Then we get into Calvin Kattar versus Aljamain Sterling. I'll keep this one brief because Aljamain Sterling, of course, he's so excited about the 300K bonus at the press conference. Oh, yeah, Dana, thank you so much. Just to put on a performance like that. Was it impressive? Yes, of course it was. Was Calvin Kattar partially to blame for it due to his lack of activity? Yes, he didn't make it a fight. Aljamain Sterling was able to do everything that he wanted in that fight. All of his window dressing, striking was on display, no power behind his shots. Everything is just to distract you so he can take you down. But his grappling looked very impressive. He looked big at featherweight, and he looked strong. The coolest moment of the fight was where he kind of like powerbomb / tombstone pile drivered Calvin Kattar on the back of his head, which was very, very impressive because Calvin's a pretty big featherweight, and he looked like he did that with ease, and I believe it was in the 3rd round too. So yeah, Aljo, I hate to say it because Peter Yan's my favorite fighter, so by proxy, I don't like Aljamain Sterling for how he took that belt away from Peter Yan. He ruined his opportunity by acting like a bitch. Besides the point, I know Peter Yan cheated, so it's okay. But Sterling is going to be an issue for these 145ers with how strong and how dominant he is in the grappling department. I know I said Diego Lopes versus Evloev, but I also think that Sterling versus Evloev makes sense stylistically because he would actually, or Evloev, mind you, would test Sterling's grappling, and it might turn into a bit of a stand-up fight, and we will get some very high-level exchanges between those two in the grappling. I think Evloev would probably beat Sterling, though, but God damn it, I could be wrong. Both guys are extremely strong, not powerful strikers, really, but strong individuals and have a vice grip. I know I said I'd keep that one brief, but God damn it. Sterling, he won. Let's just forget about that one. And then we get into Yuri Prochazka versus Rakic. This was one of the fights that I was excited for. I was very excited for this one. I look forward to every Yuri Prochazka fight. He's one of my favorite guys in the UFC to watch. He's been one of my favorite fighters to watch in the UFC. He's never involved in a boring fight. And this one delivered. Rakic looked a lot better than I expected. I feel like he leveled up since his time off. He's definitely spent that time evolving his skills. Leg kicks were money. Chewed up Yuri Prochazka's legs. And that seems to be the blueprint to beat Prochazka. Chew up the legs first and then go to the head. But Prochazka just ignores damage. He really does ignore damage. Obviously, Alex Pereira's left hook is just different, so he was able to put Prochazka out. But I don't know if there are many guys that would be able to hurt Prochazka like that. Again, the way that he tanks damage, I think it's just the mentality behind it. He seems very spiteful. Every time Rakic would land shots to the head, you could see him gritting his teeth, and he seemed like he just wanted to murder Rakic. And it seemed like it was a matter of time because Rakic did start to fade a little bit in the 2nd round. Because Prochazka was ignoring his damage. You can't just throw bombs, throw everything you have at your opponent. They walk through it. What's going to happen? Eventually, you're going to fade, and a guy like Prochazka will take over. He landed a nice short right hook at the end of the 1st round. That did look to hurt Rakic. But, man, Rakic is very tough because those are shots that put out a lot of guys at 205, and Rakic was tanking a lot of his shots, and it took this one clean 1-2 that Yuri Prochazka landed down the pipe, right on the chin, that Rakic did take pretty well. But then Prochazka did not give him a second to breathe. Sort of like dumped him on the ground and was like dragging him as Rakic was trying to crawl away to safety. Prochazka looked like he was committing a murder. And I love Prochazka so much. He's a madman, really weird guy on the mic, but the performance was excellent. What a fighter. Love him. Let's get into the main card. Cody Brundage and Bo Nickal. Didn't look too impressive in there. His striking, honestly, looked poor like I thought already. I never thought he was a good striker just because he knocked out that Woodbridge. I don't know what it is. Val Woodburn, that was his name. Knocked out Val Woodburn, but the shots were coming from the hip. It wasn't impressive striking. It was the fact that he was fighting Val Woodburn on his UFC debut. So I didn't really take a lot out of that. And Cody, he proved that he's not exactly a bum, but he's not exactly great either. So I don't really put this win that high. I don't really weigh it up that highly, and I don't think Bo Nickal did either. So respect to him, man. His attitude after the fight I thought was very valid. You know, he was critical of himself. Seems like a nice guy. Seems like he has a good personality. So I think all the hate towards Bo Nickal is a bit overplayed now. Let's not just start shitting on the guy because he gets put on UFC 300 main card. That is the UFC's doing. Bo Nickal is not to blame. Although it was a bit of an underwhelming performance, I hope he levels up because based on that, I can see a lot of these middleweights having an easier time with him, or like a relatively easy time. Then Charles Oliveira versus Arman Tsarukyan. I was very excited to watch Charles fight, but Arman deservingly got the win here. All the Charles Oliveira fans screaming robbery. Stop watching fights because you don't understand how fights are scored. Arman Tsarukyan clearly won the second and the third, I believe it was. Yes, it was the second and the third that Arman clearly won. It was mostly dominance on the ground. Very nice ground and pound. Charles arguably won the first one, though. Or maybe it's not arguable. Maybe it is obvious that he won the first. But from what I remember, Arman dominated the second half of the round, while Charles Oliveira almost had him out of there in the first half with a guillotine. That looked tight. Arman is tough as nails. You can see the look on his face when he was trying to get out of that guillotine and fight the hands and push down on the leg to try and free himself. He looked like he had no intention of quitting. He was more willing to go out last night than tap. So I gained a lot of respect for Arman there. It was a beautiful performance. His striking is looking decent. He's good on the feet, but his grappling is very impressive, and he just looks like a very powerful person. I want to see him versus Islam. I know Poirier is fighting Islam, which was announced at the post-fight press conference, but I want to see Arman versus him again. The scrambles in that fight, just like the first, would be very high level, and the striking exchanges would be even better than last time out. Yeah, good performance from Arman Tsarukyan. Charles Oliveira, man, I don't know. He seems to be too complacent when he's off his back, and cost him to lose this fight. Against these Sambo guys, it just doesn't work the same way. Yeah, good fight, decent fight. Charles let me down, man, but Arman Tsarukyan is elite, 100%. And we get into the BMF title fight. This fight delivered everything that we could have expected from it and more. Max Holloway put on one of the best performances I've seen in my life. That spinning back kick he landed to the nose at the end of round one was absolutely gorgeous, and he was winning the majority of the round up to that point. Second round, he dominated. Gaethje did have some moments in the third and fourth, it just speaks to how tough and mentally strong Justin Gaethje is. Because to have your nose, it looked like it was shattered from that. It looked like it was flattened to his face. It just looked completely mangled. He kept touching it, so you could tell that it was bothering him. It was obviously hurting, and every time that Max would land a 1-2 or even just a jab on there, it was bugging him, man. But Justin is just too tough to give up. You could tell, man. He was having that mental battle during this fight. He's like, is this shit even worth it anymore? But nah, Gaethje has not an ounce of quit in him. What a fighter, what a warrior. But Max put a clinic on him, man. Justin Gaethje's tendencies really were exploited in this fight for Max Holloway. Similar to how Dustin Poirier, between their first or their second fight between Justin Gaethje and Dustin Poirier, Dustin was throwing the body kick, but he was throwing it a little bit higher as Justin Gaethje would duck. So Justin Gaethje likes to collapse his body in and duck and lean his weight forward to defend against a lot of shots. And in this fight, Max had it correct. That jumping, spinning back kick, throw it a little bit higher, and he ended up catching him multiple times in this fight. I don't know how many times he caught Gaethje in the face with it, but he was timing it beautifully all throughout this fight. He threw about 10 of them, landed a good majority of them. What a fucking fighter Max Holloway is, man. He's everyone's favorite at this point. Like, after that fight, it's solidified. Topuria looked like he was shitting his pants while Max was calling him out. Wow. one of the greatest performances of all time, one of the greatest knockouts of all time. Maybe just the context, the fact that it was the last second and it was part of this legendary fight. The whole fight was amazing up to that point. And then for him to chin Gaethje after pointing to the ground and giving Gaethje a chance, because that's what that was. With how dangerous Gaethje is on the feet, he was giving Gaethje a chance to win that fight in the last 10 seconds by throwing down there. He was giving Gaethje the chance. And he chins him with 1 second to go, slumps him face first. Max proved that he has leveled up since Volk. Those Volk losses taught Max a valuable lesson. He's sitting down in his punches now. He's still throwing good volume, but he's more selective with his shots. He's not just throwing shots for the sake of it. He's really throwing shots that count now. And I can't see a whole lot of guys beating him. I think he's a nightmare matchup for Topuria. I don't know if he would beat Islam. I'm actually not convinced he would beat Islam, even though he would have a massive speed advantage on the feet, man. He would. So if he's able to deal with the takedown threat, if he's able to, I don't know if he would be able to, but if he would be able to, Max, I think, would finish majority of guys in 5-rounders with the power that he's throwing with now. What a fighter. Max Holloway, $600K bonus, all that shit deserved. Wow, that is the kind of performance that immortalizes you in history. Incredible. It kind of like sucked all the air out of the entire event though after that, because I was just thinking about him slumping Justin Gaethje. And I will say, I did predict this result. I don't know if I predicted 4 minutes and 59 seconds into the 5th round from to finish him, but I expected a 4th or 5th round finish for Max Holloway. And it happened. And I'm happy to get that one correct. We get into Weili Zhang versus Yan Xiaonan. Now, you know what? There was a lot of backlash about this fight being the co-main of UFC 300, but these two ladies delivered. The first round was quite dominant from Weili on the ground. Second round, I actually forget if it was the first or the second round that she choked her out, but one of those rounds, I was kind of baked while watching this card, so I kind of forget which round it was. It might have been the first. No, I think it was the second that she essentially choked Yan Xiaonan out cold. Which seems weird because Weili obviously had to use a lot of energy to choke her out there. You know, she was holding that submission for a while. Yan goes out. She gets saved by the bell. She essentially gets woken back up and then has a great third round. I believe drops Weili. I think dropped her again in the 4th too, but Weili rallied, dominated her on the ground, beat her up. Yan Xiaonan's tough as nails for taking some of that ground and pound. Like when Weili had her flattened out on her back, wow, the storm that she was taking from Weili Zhang. All respect to Yan Xiaonan. She's clearly elite. She hung in there with Weili, and she made it a better fight than this fight had any right to be. So respect to both ladies. They went out there and they put on a performance. It was an enjoyable fight. Weili showed that why she's elite. She has been exploited recently in the striking, I feel. She beat up Lemos everywhere. But guys or girls like Rose Namajunas and Yan Xiaonan have been able to exploit her in the stand-up. So yeah, the fact that she's developed such elite grappling skills to go along with her excellent striking, it's hard to see a lot of these girls beating her, but she is a bit chinny. She does get dropped. She does get hurt. So maybe in the future one of these new up-and-comers can get her out of there. But Weili Zhang is hard to pick against her in any fight at this point going forward. And then we get into the main event of UFC 300. Alex Pereira versus Jamal Hill. Jamal Hill was walking out with all this swagger, all this confidence about him, emoting on Poatan before Poatan got to the octagon, just to get completely starched like that. 3 minutes and 14 seconds into the first round. One of the cooler moments on the card, probably the second coolest moment behind Max Holloway's knockout of Justin Gaethje. Of course, nothing in the UFC will ever top that, I don't think. That seems like the coolest moment that anyone's ever came up with. That was incredible for Max Holloway. But Pereira had I don't want to say a close second, but it was up there. Very cool moment. Jamal Hill lands a dick kick. Poatan, he just eats it. Stone face. Herb Dean starts to come in to stop the fight, give Alex a breather. Alex just puts his hand out, says, "Hold up, let me cook." Walks towards him. Jamal Hill throws a left hand. As he throws the left hand, Alex Pereira counters with the left hook. It was like a weird left hook shovel uppercut type situation. Lands it instantly, and Jamal Hill gets starched. And the ground and pound, to seal the deal, put him to sleep. Wow. Alex Pereira is one of the greats of combat sports. To do what he's done in this short amount of time is nothing short of spectacular. You know, all that shit talk from Izzy all throughout. I know Pereira has been a bit spiteful towards Izzy too, but Izzy just seems to be the biggest hater of Alex Pereira. I know the meme is that Alex is Izzy's biggest hater, but Izzy just does have this weird energy towards him. He gets one win against him and then acts like he's above him now all of a sudden. Meanwhile, Alex Pereira is going out there and doing the things that Izzy himself could not do, becoming double champ, defending that light heavyweight belt. And now he's calling for a move up to heavyweight against Tom Aspinall. I don't know how that one would go for him. I do think Aspinall would probably beat him. But for him to even want that, to chase greatness the way he's been chasing, is admirable. But even though I think Aspinall would win, I would not be surprised if Alex Pereira lands a mean left hook and puts him out. Because it seems like anybody can get that left hook. Anyone is susceptible to being knocked out by that left hook. Alex is just that good, man. He is really great. He barely even landed any significant shots. It was essentially the first big shot that he landed of the fight that put Jamal Hill out. I don't want to say that Jamal Hill got exposed here because he is a good fighter, but Alex Pereira is elite. And Jamal did get a 42-year-old Glover Teixeira to win that belt. You know, Alex Pereira is just different gravy. There are a lot of guys in the UFC that would beat Jamal Hill. I know Jamal did become champ, but guys like Yuri Prochazka, which I would like to see next, to be honest, I think will beat him. Rakic, after seeing that fight, I think would give Jamal Hill a very hard time. But wow. Maybe this is just recency bias speaking. In fact, it probably is. But wow. What a card. UFC 300 is now a legendary card. The UFC put on one of the best fight cards, or probably the best fight card I've ever seen in my life. I just sat there from 6 o'clock until about 1:30 in the morning and had the biggest shit-eating grin on my face the entire time. Thank you, Dana White, for putting this card together. Everyone who was talking shit about this card, I hope your low expectations were exceeded, which I assume they were, because this card delivered in every area, bar Aljamain Sterling, and him being Aljamain Sterling. This card is immortalized. Max Holloway, Alex Pereira, immortalized. Incredible. This honestly just got me more amped up for future fights. This card right here, this is the kind of card that levels the UFC up and brings in an even bigger viewer base. And I cannot wait to see what happens next. The fights that Dana White announced at the press conference are exciting too. I'm excited. I'm still amped up. I'm still thinking about that bomb from Max Holloway, that slump Justin Gaethje. What a night. What a card. Thank you guys for watching. And let me know in the comment section below if you want to see me cover mixed martial arts more often. I will. I'm trying to transition this channel over to more of a real life MMA channel. I would like to cover MMA. So if you guys would like to see it, if you've watched this far in the video, then let me know in the comment section below. Thank you very much and have a nice day.